Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live event. We are so thrilled to finally get to share with everyone our new standard for handling global accommodations for candidates. If you followed the Disclo journey, you've seen how our new approach to handling workplace accommodations for employees has made our clients' workplaces more inclusive and safe for employees with disabilities. Now we get to take the wrapping off of Disclo's companion platform, Disclo Hire. Disclo Hire tackles a process that no one else is handling. A lot of employers and a lot of service providers focus on the employee accommodation experience, but don't always do it very well. Disclo is focusing now on the candidate experience, and we're so thrilled to finally get to share this with all of our followers and everybody who's joining us today. I'm Joshua Peterson. I'm the head of accommodations and client experience at Disclo, and I'm honored to be here and also introduce one of our co-founders and our chief product officers, Kai Keene. Kai will share more about his experience and the background on the Disclo story in just a moment. We're also super excited. I'm going to use excited and thrilled and all kinds of words I feel like over and over in this presentation, because this has truly been a great experience, and we're really excited. Gregg Olhsen, he is the manager of leaves and accommodations at Lyra Health, and has years and years, decades of experience building and managing global accommodations and leave programs. He's one of our current clients for Disclo with Lyra, and they are adding Disclo Hire here in just a couple of weeks. And we're so excited that he gets to share his current experience and tell you really why he's confident in Disclo Hire as well. So with that, I'm going to give it over to Kai. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Joshua. Like you said, I am the Chief Product Officer of Disclo, as well as a co-founder. Love to share the story of Disclo first and foremost, and then we'll go on to a little bit more on our design philosophy of Disclo Hire, and then an actual demo. So let's begin first. We're on a mission to build inclusive and accessible workplaces for all. And so I want to talk a little bit more about what that means. And the story begins when I met Hannah Olhsen back in 2017, right after her terrible experience of having been let go from her first job in Washington, D.C., because of a very tough chronic health condition that she lives with. And having been let go, going through the experience of then looking for a new job was understandably very daunting. And so we really began our journey to address Hannah's personal issues specifically. And so we decided to first build our company called Chronically Capable, which was really a job board or job marketplace for folks with disabilities and chronic illnesses. And then we built that up to become one of the largest job marketplaces throughout the pandemic. But during that time, especially around 2020, I'm sure you all will remember, we just kept hearing more and more about from job seekers, employees, and HR managers alike on how difficult this process of managing accommodations was. And so we started our second company together called Disclo, which, first we began by catering to both HR and employees, but we've always had in mind going back to our roots by supporting job seekers, recruiters, interviewers, and hiring managers as well. So it ironically took longer to build a product like this because there was just nothing out there in the world that caters to interview accommodations. So it took a lot of trial and error, and also learnings from our very patient pilot partners, which you'll hear more about later today. So let's begin first by going through the existing challenges. Joshua, would you mind sharing your experience as someone who's managed thousands of accommodation cases in the past?
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to say, forgot to mention one thing at the beginning, that we have a special offer for those who are attending, especially for an employer or employer representative. Stick to the end, and we're going to share that with you. So hang in there. But yes, so the challenge for employers, Kai mentioned that I have in my career managed thousands of individual accommodations cases, as well as managed end-to-end accommodations, leave, and time away programs. So I've seen a lot, and I've seen firsthand how employers struggle to attract diverse talent, and especially now with the new generation of job seekers who expect to be treated fairly and equally. This, coupled with the administrative burden and compliance issues of highly manual processes, make for high exposure to discrimination charges. If you're in talent acquisition and you know firsthand the challenge in administering an accommodations program, they're highly manual. You send an email, it kind of goes into a black hole. Candidates with disabilities aren't sure if they've been heard, if they're going to get responded to, and all those things. And so high exposure to employers. In the US, the EEOC filings for discrimination for accommodation related lawsuits nearly doubled from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year, that's a challenge, 23. And increasingly, these lawsuits are coming from job seekers and candidates who've experienced discrimination in the interview process. Just as one stat, just yesterday, HR Brew featured a job seeker survey by Indeed, and this survey found that 33% who were surveyed said that they don't feel comfortable disclosing their disability in the job search process. This is a significant hurdle to employers trying to attract talent and speaks directly to the need for employers to take a new approach to handling disability disclosures during the interview process. Kai, talk to us a little bit about the challenges that candidates are facing.
Yeah, absolutely. Joshua mentioned the 33% number from Indeed, but we did our own survey as well right before building Disclo Hire, and we saw an even higher percentage of folks who didn't want to disclose. And I think that's a really understandable feeling because as soon as you disclose, like Joshua was alluding to, it's really hard to know what's going to happen, and the process can be complex. So like in the case with employers, candidates struggle a lot with a lack of standardization as well. And it can only be scary, stressful. It can not only be scary and stressful to request something for an interview, but it can also be detrimental. Like we heard from a lot of job seekers time and time again that, when they're, trying to ask for something for an interview that they already know they may not be given that role, right? And we're about to hear a personal story in a second, but that's just something that folks that live with today. And so even in a generous case where there is some sort of process, often like an email address, like accommodations@company.com, or a form that you can send, there's a good amount of complexity involved and or led to some form of bias just by requesting an interview accommodation. And so, Joshua, I just alluded to this this video. If you could roll the tape on that, would be great.
You got it.
So my name is Rebecca, and I'm a student looking to move to the next stage in my career. I spent the last month applying to internships, and this has proven to be very difficult with a service dog. I've had interviews that have gone well until I mentioned that I had a service dog. So it's gotten to the point where I usually just don't mention that in the interview because I know I'm not going to get the job if I do. If I had a service like Disclo, it would help me advocate for myself and figure out exactly what I should be asking companies for with workplace accommodations.
Yeah, that's a powerful story.
Sure is. So that's one of the motivating factors for us for Disclo Hire is that we have heard many stories in my own career, and Gregg, who you're going to hear from in a little bit, we've seen these firsthand and helped employers navigate through discrimination charges. And it's both sad that candidates are filing charges and feel discrimination and not having equal opportunity, and difficult as working for an employer and trying to help the employer do better and navigate these things and defend against lawsuits. It's a lose-lose for both parties. So with Disclo Hire, we're trying to really bring that into a win-win for both parties. Okay?
Yeah. So we heard from the applicant experience as well, just how daunting it is, that sometimes you just don't even want to disclose. Joshua, would you mind sharing some stories you may have of your experience triaging it from the other side, from the employer's perspective?
Yeah, from the employer's perspective, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but it is a highly manual process. every once in a while, I'll go and browse some LinkedIn postings just to look at, scroll down to the bottom for the disability statement and how you can contact that company if you have, an accommodation need. And it's usually email, an alias or fill out a Google form. And then there's no understanding of what happens from there. And that's the feedback that candidates, number one, when you have a disability, you're already fearful because you've likely experienced discrimination in the past, or at least felt like you've been discriminated against. So you're already at a disadvantage, wondering if you disclose that you'll be seen as, someone who may be difficult or it's going to be hard to interview, or unsure if you can do the role and not get a fair chance. So as the survey we shared earlier, a full one third of the candidates applying aren't even sure that they should be disclosing because of that fear. So the candidate doesn't know what's going on. It comes into the company. The company's usually a hot potato of emails flying around. Whose role is it? You take it. If you need to schedule an interpreter, it's a totally manual process that can take weeks. That oftentimes leads to interviews being rescheduled at the last moment, and things many times not going well for the company or for the candidate.
Right. Absolutely. So maybe we'll kind of talk through a little bit of how we decide to build Disclo Hire and some of our design principles there. Joshua, if you go to the next slide. As a product person myself, this is near and dear to my heart, and I'll keep this quick, but wanted to just share with you quickly on some of our considerations when building Disclo Hire. So we really began by thinking about our product design principles as a starting point. And from everything we heard from both job seekers and employers, our success criteria kind of look like this. So first of all, we need the system to be and feel safe and secure, right? And then it needs to feel accessible and easy to use. And often when you make a product accessible, it is easy to use. And finally, the product itself needed to remove unconscious bias. And I'll say it, sometimes this sort of conscious bias that exists in the system. And we really wanted to remove as much as possible in the system itself. Just by having a standardized process, you're able to remove some of that. So that was our starting point. Let me talk a little bit more about each one, starting with safety and security. So first of all, Disclo Hire never asks for medical condition information. So we wanted to make sure that it complies with legal standards like ADA and HIPAA, and just making sure that none of that information is being touched. And just like with our employee product, it's HIPAA compliant and SOC 2 Type 2 certified. Let's go to the next one. With accessibility, we want to make sure that it's completely designed around the WCAG standard. And to make it easier for everybody, it should integrate with what you're currently using. So most organizations today, most employers are using an applicant tracking system, ATS. And we made sure if you're using Workday or Greenhouse or Lever or Rippling, that we'll make sure that it can be integrated so that the candidate experience can be smooth, as well as that HR manager experience, especially as a case manager sort of sitting outside maybe of a recruitment experience, you can still feel tied in. And of course, just like, again, with our employee product, this should feel like a step-by-step guided process for both candidates and employers alike, maybe akin to something like TurboTax. Okay. And then finally, removing unconscious bias. So first of all, just by having a third party be the ones to support the facilitation of the process, it naturally removes some feeling of there being a conflict of interest, right? You're not going to the employer directly asking for an interview accommodation, but you're kind of going through the system of Disclo, and that can feel a little bit more like your hand is being held throughout the process. And then I know there's been a lot of talk about AI being involved in a hiring process, and that can be detrimental as well. We never use AI or automation for hiring decisions, right? This process, if we were to use AI or automation, it's really in service to requesting interview accommodations and facilitating that interactive process. So now that I've sort of gone through the design principles, let's go next. We've been incredibly lucky And we're grateful to be working alongside folks like Samsung and Lyra and Kraft Heinz and Webflow. Lyra, we're about to hear from as well, who's really helped shape this product and understanding how their process currently works and trying to really fit into that type of experience and just giving us feedback throughout building Disclo Hires. As you can see, we've gotten some great feedback on it so far, and we've made many iterations throughout. So I know today is our launch day, but it's been out in the field for over a year now. So we're really excited to actually have it be publicly announced. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk a little bit about how this system actually works from an operations standpoint. So first of all, if you go to the next slide, you'll see that it all starts with an email. Again, because we integrate directly with your applicant tracking system, we can see when an interview has been scheduled. And as soon as we see an interview has been scheduled, the candidate will receive an email from Disclo with a note saying, hey, this company uses Disclo as a way for you to request interview accommodations. And that's where the process can begin. Of course, it's still optional. They don't need to fill in anything as a requirement, but it gives candidates a sense, first of all, of inclusivity, right? That this company, it cares about the accommodations process, and also makes it just less daunting by explaining a little bit more of what it means to have an interview accommodation. Okay, let's go next. If you are in the US, you may be familiar with the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. So during the onboarding process, which is very short for candidates, they have an opportunity to, again, optionally be able to answer some questions, which will help us pre-qualify candidates for the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. And if you don't know what that is, please feel free to reach out to us. We can talk more about it. But essentially, this is a tax credit where you can get up to something like $9,600 for that candidate's first year of employment. So let's keep going. So here, the candidate can go through the experience of, again, that step-by-step guided process of selecting exactly the interview that you're requesting this accommodation for, selecting an accommodation either from a list or from something that they type in. And it's not meant to be a shopping cart exercise. So it's not meant to be something where they're asking for a whole bunch of things at once. You can do things one at a time. So if you need extra time for an assessment and bring in maybe an emotional support animal, for example, those can be asked separately, but that's all part of this process. And finally, the third step will be adding an explanation on what you are asking for. So this is where I'll pause and I'll switch over to the admin side. And let me show you a real life example of what it looks like from a case manager's perspective. So here it is. So this is a case profile from the case manager's perspective. So I can see a few things all at once. First of all, I can see the request that's coming in. This is a request for sign language interpreter and extended time. And here the candidate is John Lennon asking for this accommodation. You can see the scheduled interview time and date, what position this person is interviewing for, and that I'm assigned to this case here. You can already see here that the current status is in progress. This particular request has already been approved, but it's still a case in progress. And the reason why is because Disclo is not just about making a decision, right? Of course, that's an important aspect of being able to approve or deny certain requests, but it's also about the implementation process. That's really where a lot of the complexities come in for employers, right? So you'll see at the top here a few different tabs. So let's go through these real quick. So the next tab is questions. So as a case manager, you may have more questions. Even if it's approved, you may have questions around around the interpreter in this case, or what the accommodation needs to pertain to, or what kinds of equipment is required, or things of that nature. And you may just have some outstanding questions here. Of course, this is not meant to be a place where you ask for any sort of medical condition information. And then this third tab here, implementation. Now, this is really cool and sort of kind of puts Disclo Hire sort of into this category of the first ever system that allows for this process to happen, where we went out of our way to write an implementation guide for every single accommodation request that's in our database. So in this case, because it's for sign language interpreter and extended time, we have 4 steps that we've written. And for each step, you'll be able to see exactly what needs to happen. Purchase a service for sign language interpreter, for example. Step 2, extend the interview time by 50%, which is what they requested. And for each step, you want to mark them as complete. And by doing that, you're really showing this good faith effort for this interactive process. You're showing that not only have you approved the accommodation, but you know exactly how to implement it. And in a case where, let's say, you don't know how to purchase services for sign language interpreters, well, you can always reach out to us at the bottom right here, and we'll have actual human beings on staff to answer your questions around how this should be implemented, or maybe vendors that you need to be connected to. We're here to help on that front as part of the Disclo Hire platform. Okay, the last thing I wanted to note is case manager notes feature on the lower right here. So this is a process where maybe you have multiple case managers working on an accommodations case together, or you just want to make note of things that are happening on this case, maybe happen informally or outside of the system. You can still have documentation by including things like here. You can see that Kai put in a note earlier today that they've scheduled the ASL interpreter and sent them an interview schedule. And so you can really see everything that's happening on this case. Sorry, I know I said that's the final note, but one last thing to show you is viewing an activity. One of the reasons why we consider ourselves to be a lawyer's best friend is because we have something like this, where you can see every single thing that's happened on this case, both from the candidate's perspective and your case manager's perspective. Again, also to show good faith effort and documenting every single thing that's happened on the case so far. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. And I wanted to go to the next slide. And so throughout the process, you will see that both the candidates and the case managers are being sent notifications and emails of what's happening every step of the way. And so this is also true of notifying the interviewers as well. So a case manager is not always going to be the interviewer. In fact, in most cases, are going to be very different people in different departments. And you want to make sure that the interviewer also knows what's going on as well, what's been approved, or what needs to happen next. And so we've built an entire system around that experience as well. Okay.
Hey, Kai, before we move forward, there's a couple of questions that I'd like us to touch on. So we have some people that are viewing from British Columbia and from UK, and there's one question from a talent acquisition person in UK. I believe, maybe not. They just said, would this system also work in the UK? So can you answer that?
That's a great question. So what's amazing about Disclo Hire is that we built it in such a way where it can apply globally. It really is a case management system sort of at large. So you're able to use it even if you are in the UK or Europe, since also because we don't touch any medical condition information, you are able to use it no matter where you are in the world or where the residency of these candidates are. Yeah, that's the short way to answer it.
Great, thanks. And I want to say that just following, we're going to just be here for a couple minutes on a couple questions, and just following, we're going to bring on Gregg and get to hear his experience. One other question here is that does Disclo integrate or Disclo Hire with ATS systems, or does the employer have to log in separately?
That's a great question. So we do integrate directly with the ATS in the sense that we'll be able to see all the candidates that are coming in who have scheduled an interview, and the system will automatically send those emails out. You will have to case manage on the Disclo Hire system directly because it really should be kept separate from any sort of applicant tracking system or an HR system, like an HRIS. But yes, it can integrate with almost any applicant tracking system out there, thanks to our integrations partner, Merge.
Great. Thanks, Kai. Now we're going to go forward here with our...
lost you there, Joshua.
I removed myself. We're going to go forward here with our client guests and bring on Gregg Olhsen, who is from Lyra. Gregg, thanks so much for joining us. And again, you are the leaves and accommodation manager at Lyra, but I'd like you to just speak some more and just share more about your experience and your role at Lyra. Maybe a little bit about, for those who aren't familiar, who Lyra is and why they're really unique in their field.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Joshua. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today too, as well. So, my name is Gregg Olhsen. I've been in the leave and accommodations field for over 25 years, almost 25 years now. So, I've got a long background and a deep history and a real passion for supporting employees as well as applicants and candidates, and even in personal life, employees and people who have disabilities and the needs, medical needs, and that. So I've got a long history, and as you saw on the slide earlier, my previous employers were Amazon. I was a specialist there, program manager, built the programs there, and then prior to that, Costco Wholesale. So I've got experience with large companies. Prior to that, I worked for a small county government, so I've got all the realm. And Lyra Health is very unique, and it's a very special company. It's absolutely phenomenal. The company itself is, for those of you who don't know or haven't heard of Lyra Health, it's a company that's focused specifically on mental health and providing mental health support for employers and their employees. So not only do I get to have accommodations and leave for Lyra employees, but Lyra, the company, also supports it as well in the mental health range. But I look at Lyra Health as more than just a mental health company. They are like an employee assistance program on steroids. I mean, it's ask anybody who's ever worked with a therapist or worked with Lyra Health, you'll just be blown away with the services and what Lyra Health has to provide. And so given the opportunity to join Lyra Health last year was just phenomenal. And now I've been tasked with taking over the leave and accommodations program here at Lyra. Lyra is more of a startup company. They started in 2018, and so they've grown significantly over the past 5-6 years now. And with that has the startup mentality, and it's outgrown it. And so they needed to bring in someone who had the subject matter knowledge to really build the program for Lyra Health. So that's what I've been lucky to be able to come in and do. And so one of my first tasks with Lyra was to really do an assessment of where they stood, where they were at, where the gaps were, do a deep dive into the analysis of the programs. And it was pretty evident right away that there was basically minimal production for accommodations, and it needed to be really built out to align with the values of Lyra Health. So I was able to do that, and quickly I started researching for companies for providing the accommodation support, a case management process, and that. So I was researching all the various companies, and Disclo was one of the companies that I was researching. So
excellent. And Gregg, what were the exact things you were looking for to improve in Lyra's accommodations process? Like, what were the pain points and your outcomes you're hoping to achieve?
Sure. There were a few pain points. One was I needed to have the real access to the case management and the process. And even what Kai was just showing just a little bit ago, there's that activity log where you can just go and say, okay, this happened, this date, this happened. And it's concise, it's clear, it's easy. The existing processes were not that way. If I ever had any sort of type of question or claim, it was near impossible to get all that detail. So that was one large pain point. Another pain point was the understanding, really the deep understanding of accommodations and what accommodations are and what accommodations aren't. And so when I met with you, Joshua, and Disclo, seeing your knowledge and background with leave and accommodations, and there was that understanding. And so I had the confidence that, okay, when I work with Disclo and I work through the accommodations process, there is that understanding. And so that was another pain point with our current process or previous process. And thirdly, in my last role in my previous employer with Amazon, one of my major projects was to identify better ways to provide accommodations for applicants and candidates. So I was deep into this process, building a process, and the whole time I was doing this, I had in my head, man, if only I could design and build a candidate accommodations system. And every stone I unturned, everything I uncovered, I kept thinking and looking, okay, this is how I would look at it. This is what I would do. This is what I want to do. And honestly, I had it in my mind that maybe I should even think about starting a company like Disclo and building a system, but I don't have the technology expertise whatsoever. So I quickly put that one behind. I've got the subject matter knowledge expertise, but I couldn't do that. So when I was meeting with Disclo and getting a product demo, Joshua presented and shared that, oh, and by the way, look at this is an enhancement that we're building. And I'm like, tell me more. And so I had the opportunity to really ask some questions, and Joshua and Kai and the team have really been good in bringing me along as well to kind of help provide feedback and what enhancements. So that's been tremendously effective and supportive. So.
Excellent. Thanks, Gregg. So thanks so much for sharing your experience with the Disclo team, with the Disclo platform. And would you just kind of share a little bit, how that experience helps you with the confidence, your current experience to date with implementing Disclo Hire, and how you see Disclo Hire improving Lyra's candidate experience?
Yeah, one of the largest things when I was looking in my previous employer, looking at that applicant candidate process was, yes, there is a process that, most employers, you're aware, we have to provide accommodations for candidates and applicants, and we have our applications, and if you need an accommodation, go here. So there's processes built, but there's really nothing to support it. And when I was looking at bettering or creating a better process, the biggest thing I kept coming across was accessibility. And just to the point you and Joshua and Kai were talking about earlier, how and even your candidate or your video of the person who was talking about a service animal, and they were scared, and that's an accessibility issue. When a candidate doesn't know and is scared to ask for an accommodation because they don't know how it's going to be perceived or what the process is or what's going to happen, that was a barrier. And so when I was looking at the processes that you built here with this Disclo Hire and how it separates it and removes it, and it gives the applicants and candidates that freedom and that ability to feel safe and to ask for the supports that could be needed. And so removing that fear, that accessibility barrier, to me was big in improving the experience for applicants and candidates who might be applying here with Lyra Health. So that is one of the biggest experience aspects that I was looking for, and I'm just speaking focusing mainly on the Disclo Hire product, not the other products, which I'm sure you've talked about many times before. You're on mute, Joshua.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks so much for sharing your experience. And would you hang on a moment? We're going to just do a brief recap and then go into a Q&A. I see there's a couple of questions that we'll get to in just a few minutes. If you have other questions, please load up the comments, and we'll get to those in a moment. I'm going to bring Kai back on, and then Kai, you can go ahead and take us into a recap.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. Well, with the goal of making the interview accommodations process safe, efficient, and compliant, we talked about a lot of things. We really tried to lower the barrier for interview accommodation requests. We tried to standardize and create a compliant process, and really trying to reduce that unconscious bias. We wanted to make this process where you can show your candidates as an employer that you care about your inclusivity process and that accommodations process you're taking very seriously. And of course, by allowing for a lower barrier for requests, you're going to increase the diversity of candidate pool. And finally, if you're in the US, again, giving opportunities for your WOTC tax credits as well. Okay, I want to get to Q&A because there's some great questions I'd love to answer too.
There absolutely are. And I want to say real quick as we're going into Q&A, the special offer that we're offering is if you are an employer or an employer representative who would like to try Disclo Hire or see a demo of Disclo Hire, email us at hello@disclo.com. And this is going to be dropped in the comments also, hello@disclo.com with the subject Disclo Hire 2024 by March 15th. So next week to claim that offer. So again, email us at hello@disclo.com with Disclo Hire 2024 in the subject, and we'll share what that special offer is for any employers or employer representatives that are interested in Disclo Hire or others at their company learning about the platform. So first, I want to, Kai, there's a few questions in here about, and I think I definitely believe this is a misunderstanding of how the Disclo Hire would be time consuming and add additional layers, having to go through a third party or for companies who are involved in programs. So I just want to speak to that. So as an employer representative, and I'm going to ask Gregg live to check me on this, as having handled thousands of accommodations myself, just the example we gave, so scheduling an ASL interpreter, the fact is that there are certain things that the employer must do to make that go well. They must schedule the interpreter. They must, if they want to give a good candidate experience, extend the interview time, because you don't want to dock someone with a disability just because they need to work through an interpreter, which adds time and therefore reduces the amount of time they can use just to be equally competitive against candidates who don't need that accommodation. So you want to extend the time. You're going to need to send the interview information to the interpreter so that they can show up in person or show up on Zoom or wherever it is. And you're going to need to inform certain individuals internally about that accommodation or certain notes about the accommodation, just so that they're aware, and the candidate does not need to explain their accommodation when they get to the interview. So we want to send certain information to those involved in the interview process. It's not about the accommodation. It's not about the disability. It's just simply to say, this individual is approved for an accommodation. The time is going to be extended. There's going to be an interpreter on there. Please address the candidate and not the interpreter. Please speak at a good volume and at a moderated tone, a moderated speed, so that the interpreter can keep up. So little notes like that. So those, in fact, are things that the employer must do. In today's world, the employer doesn't have a great process to do that. Most employers, right? Greg, can you give me a head shake, a thumbs up, or hey, am I kind of right, or two thumbs up?
I'm agreeing with you. And actually, if I might interject here real quick, that was one of the starting pain point when I was with Amazon, was we were looking at specifically because we had data that was showing that applicants who were deaf and hard of hearing and required interpreters were taking significantly much longer time, because they were reaching out to the person who called them to saying, I need an interpreter. And they were typically recruiters who didn't maybe know exactly, okay, what do I do? How do I do it? What's the steps?
Yeah.
And so roundabout, it would be delay, delay, delay. And it was a bad experience for our candidates. And it resulted in loss of hire of quality candidates. And so, and again, it
Yeah.
was also accessibility barrier. So definitely.
Great input. So with Disclo Hire, any candidate who's interviewing with you, who's scheduled for an interview and needs an accommodation, literally in less than 5 minutes, their accommodation request is filed and in the inbox of the employer, documented that that was filed, and that employer must respond and treat that well, because it is now documented in an electronic system that if there's a discrimination claim and it goes to discovery, we're going to have to provide that in that process. So within 5 minutes, no email alias that goes into a black hole of communication, wondering what's going to happen. So most employers don't know those 4 or 5 steps that you would need to do to schedule an interpreter for a candidate. And most are going to just do it off the side of their desk. Disclo Hire, we provide a step-by-step implementation checklist tailored to each accommodation. So that helps the employer be quick, be organized. It allows the candidate who's requested the accommodation to see real-time status updates of their request and know that so it helps the employer provide amazing service to that candidate with a disability with timely updates, not just an email and a wait and wonder and a wait and wonder and wait and wonder. It provides real service with real visibility.
Yeah.
Another question.
Sorry,
Kai,
Joshua. I also wanted to add to that, just
Go
to
ahead.
empathize with the experience of being a candidate today, right? If you wanted to ask for, interview accommodations, the way it would usually happen is you're already in touch with the recruiter or the interviewer. And so you would usually go directly to them, the people who are interviewing you, and say, hey, I have this, disability or chronic illness or what have you, and I need this accommodation for my interview. And that is what creates this bias. Best case scenario, what should happen is, if you use something like Disclo Hire, it goes directly to someone else, some other department who are experts in dealing with cases like this, who have nothing to do with the interviewers or the recruiters. They're the ones who can take this case, they can triage it, and only notify the interviewer of what accommodation they've already approved, right? That's best case scenario. And so I really want to emphasize the narrative, because that's such an important distinction, such a difference in the process of requesting something.
Absolutely. Great note. Another question, can you elaborate on the candidate's experience with the platform at the accommodation request stage?
Yes.
How are you guiding them through the disclosure process? Kai, you want to take that?
Yeah, since we're short on time, I'll just say that it really, first of all, does feel like a TurboTax experience where we're taking them through this step-by-step guided process. And because we don't request medical information as part of this, only sort of an optional survey for the pre-qualification of the work opportunity tax credit, and that's separate. We really don't need to have disclosures happen. And it really just goes right into the experience of requesting that accommodation that you need, as is best practice along with EEOC guidelines and the ADA.
Exactly. So for candidate accommodations, it's really the question of, is this reasonable on the surface of the request, and can the company still assess the candidate to be qualified to complete the essential functions of the job with the accommodation they're requesting in place? That's really all the employer needs to be looking at. I'm going to combine 2 questions here, and I'll answer this one. For companies that are involved in the program, do you send this email to every applicant and just wait to see who uses the program? And then have pilot companies seen an increase in accommodation requests? So the answer is yes. For every candidate who is scheduled for an interview that we can see that in their ATS, they're scheduled for an interview, we'll send an email saying that Lyra Health, for example, Lyra Health uses Disclo for candidates who need to request an accommodation. If you need such support, click here to make a request. So yes, we do. And the reason for that is, in today's world, if you need an accommodation, you might be struggling to look through a bunch of job boards and postings to figure out what's the email address, how do I do this, what's the process. And so it gets front and center that employee or other candidates know about this. our employer partners have not seen a drastic uptick in their accommodations requests after implementing Disclo. There is sometimes a very low single-digit increase in the short term, just because when an employer makes a statement to say we really are inclusive, we're going to have a standard process now for accommodations, that makes employees who previously were afraid to disclose to feel like maybe my employer is going to listen, and maybe I'm safe now to disclose and get and request an accommodation and not be discriminated against or fired or worse because I'm making a request. So, but overall, there is not a wave of increase. I know we're a little bit over time. I think let's just try to handle this real quick. Yeah,
go ahead. Josh, I'm sorry. I wanted to add color to this. We don't send an email to every applicant. We only send an email to applicants whose interview's been scheduled. So that's a really big distinction. So it's not to every single applicant coming in.
Absolutely.
And Paul also had an additional question here about if you were to mark, I don't have a disability, like your EEO, voluntary survey during your application process, it doesn't matter. You can say you don't have a disability. We will still send you that email because that's not always going to be accurate. And everyone has a right to ask for interview accommodations. So we don't distinguish between those things.
Yep, absolutely. Rick Cortez is asking, does Disclo adjust the customer-facing language or verbiage for business culture regional terminology? Yes. So Disclo Hire is built to be global, and so it uses global language, not central to the US ADA. Side note, Disclo started as centered around ADA and US-centric, and we are building versions now of the site that's not US-centric, globalized, and then specific to UK, Australia, and other regions. So yes, we are taking on global accommodations and ready to administer those. And then lastly, Courtney is asking, can you explain how the platform would look for employers using both Disclo and Disclo Hire, and kind of what that flow would look like? Kai, you want to take that?
Yeah, real quick, Courtney. We really did integrate the two platforms together. So as an administrator, you can switch between them very easily and be triaging accommodations cases for interviews, and then switch really quick over to employees as well. So this should be a very seamless experience. And Courtney, I can talk to you in more detail after this as well.
Great. And that is a wrap. I think that's all the questions that we have. If you have any questions, anybody, reach out to one of us. You can now message on Disclo on LinkedIn on the Disclo page. Send us a message there. Go to disclo.com/demo to schedule a demo, or email us if you're an employer, again, at hello@disclo.com with Disclo Hire 2024 in the subject line, and we're glad to share with you a special offer. Gregg, thank you again for joining us and lending your experience. We are super grateful to have you with us. And for now, we'll sign off. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Gregg.